Hello again, class. The purpose of this video is to show you how to navigate to the library's electronic resources and the Galileo search engine in particular, and how to use these tools to find sources for your various research projects, not just in this class, but in any college class. I will also talk about how these tools can assist with compiling bibliographies and works cited pages, and some of the ways they can also confuse and misdirect even experienced students. So at the end of this video is a little section on problems, where I'll talk about that. So now that you know how to quote and properly document sources, that was the topic of our first unit, the next step is learning how to find these sources and assess their appropriateness for an academic audience. Going forward for the rest of the semester, you can expect various assignments that will require you to do some degree of independent research. So first, you need to know how to navigate the library's online research tools. You can access these tools from the Gordon State College homepage or from your D2L page. So here is the current version of the Gordon State College homepage. And at the bottom, you can see various commonly used links, and the library is there. We're going to come back to that because I'm going to show you the long way to get to Galileo. But there's also a short way directly from your D2L page. So somewhere on your D2L page, for me, it was in the it's in the bottom right. There is a direct link to the Galileo Discover tool. But like I said, I'm going to take the long way and click on that library link from the Gordon State College homepage, which directs you here. And you can see underneath the library, there's 5, 6 different links there, library hours, services, some contact information, but we're going to look at electronic resources. That's what you would want to click. And when you do that, you will see this screen. And quite a lot of information on here. We're just looking at looking for database tools. And to get to those, we need to click on Galileo. So you'll click on that Galileo link there. And when you do, you will see this screen. Imagine, discover, explore. I want you to take note in this screenshot, the top right corner there, all databases. Make a mental note of that. We'll be coming back to that later. But we're going to start by talking about the basic discover tool, the search tool. And I'm going to ask you to focus on classic searches. You see to the left there something called a bento search. I'll talk about that in a minute. I think it's a good idea for students to stay away from that, at least early on. The classic search tool works kind of like Google does. You simply insert key terms and you press the search button, and then what Galileo will do is use your terms to locate relevant articles, and it pulls those articles from some of the larger, more comprehensive academic databases. It does not pull from all databases, however, and that's important to keep in mind. Also important to remember that Galileo itself is not a database. It's just a search tool. So you would never have a reason to put Galileo in a works cited entry because it is not a database. The bento search produces the same results as the classic search, and you can experiment with it if you wish. It organizes the results based on source type. So examples of types of sources are print books, ebooks, journal articles, and so on. This can be efficient, but in my observation, it can cause less experienced students to overlook potentially useful sources. So for beginners, I recommend starting with the classic search, which provides a single list of sources, starting with those most relevant to the user's search terms. And I'll show you what happens in just a moment. Talk about databases now. So as useful as Galileo is, like I said, it has limitations, especially for more advanced searches or for more advanced students. For one thing, like I said, it does not search all available databases. It just searches some of the big ones, but not some of the more specialized ones. So to conduct more thorough research in your particular field, you may need to search databases by subject area and just bypass the Galileo tool completely. So if you look in the top right of that screenshot there, I mentioned it earlier, all databases. If you click on that link, you will open an alphabetical list of all of the databases to which the University System of Georgia holds subscriptions. So they are alphabetical. So you can see Academic Search Complete. That's a big one, and Galileo does search that database. But Access World News, Accounting, Tax, and Banking Collection, and so on. And there are, at the time that I took this screenshot, there were 269 databases, and I think there are actually more than that now. So not particularly useful to try to navigate to the ones you need alphabetically. So I always advise students to go to the subject listing, click on that subjects button, and what it does is it opens a list of academic subjects, and you can find your subject. Like my field is literature and writing, which is kind of in the middle of that screenshot. And if you click on that, it will open another screen that lists only the databases associated with that particular subject. So it might be 10, maybe a dozen databases, and that can be another useful way for you to do research, specialized research. We're not going to do that in this video, however. We're going to stick with the Galileo classic search tool, and you can see I've already put some search terms in this screenshot: cannibalism and Americas. And I'm going to click the search button, and then we will take a look at the results that we get. So when you hit the search button, you will receive a list of results containing one or more of your search terms in the title of the article. So you can see there are my two search terms. They're actually highlighted. They're also italicized. I'm not sure why, since they're highlighted, but they are highlighted and italicized. And you can see that actually item number 6 and item number 7 have both my search terms. My original search terms are in the titles. And at the top of the screen, you will see a ribbon with various search filters that you can use to narrow your results down. I recommend clicking the buttons for full text and peer-reviewed sources. The full text filter, when you click it, will limit your search results to items you can read online. Not everything listed on Galileo is accessible online. You might have to go to the library and get the physical object to look at. So clicking full text just ensures that you can access the material online. And then I also recommend clicking the peer-reviewed filter. Peer review, that term refers to a process, the process by which articles are vetted by experts prior to publication. It's a quality control measure that distinguishes scholarly work from popular journalism. Peer-reviewed material is more reliable and appropriate for academic and professional audiences. Finally, there's a filter for time. You can click that drop down and click items from the last year, the last 10 years. In certain fields, it may be necessary to limit your results to the most recent in order to ensure your research is timely and relevant. It's not so important in my field of literary study, but in fields like the social sciences in particular, or the natural sciences, the timeliness of research can be absolutely critical. So you may need to limit your results, to use that search limiter based on the field in which you're doing your research. So if you find full text results, available reading options appear at the bottom of the listing. You can see I'm pointing to the button at the bottom there. It says Access Now, and it says PDF in parentheses there. Most documents that Galileo polls are presented in either PDF or HTML format. A PDF, portable document format, is a digital facsimile of the document as it appears in its original print context. So that original context usually is a book or a periodical of some sort. So basically you have a photograph, a digital photograph of that document. HTML, or hypertext markup language, is used primarily in web design. Whenever possible, you should utilize PDFs. They're easier to read, they're easier to download and print, and because they include page numbers, they're easier to cite in an essay. That doesn't mean you can't use HTML, but I think HTML format should always be an option, the option of last resort. So in this first item, item number 6, Vespucci rediscovers America. Here you can click on the PDF. I'll just scroll down through it here. And you can see that you can see the page numbers, you see the page breaks. This is the article as it appeared in the periodical. Art History is the name of the periodical. The next entry, number 7, Cannibalism and Carnivalesque, does not have a PDF option. There's a button there, more information, and when you click on it, you get a list of links. All of these take you to a document that is not a PDF, it's in HTML format. And as you can see, I find this much harder to read, and printing it often results in a document that's ugly and hard to read. I don't like working with HTML text and will avoid it if I can. And I encourage you to do the same. So when you click on a search result, you can see that item number 6 and item number 7 there, both those titles are hyperlinked. You click on them, you'll open a detailed record containing important information, additional information about the item, and much of that information you will use later to complete a works cited entry. So I'm going to click on that first item, and it takes me to this page. There you see the title, and it tells us what database Galileo pulled the article from what database it pulled the article. Remember, you will need to include the name of the database in works cited entries for any item you access through Galileo. Again, Galileo is not a database, so pay attention to the databases for your articles. There are details below this. It wouldn't all fit in one screenshot that you could read. So I'm going to shrink that down and move it over so I can show you some more of the information that would be contained on this page. You can see the title there and more information that you would need for your works cited entry, like the author or authors of the article. And then, of course, obviously publication information, which is listed under the heading source. So the source is the item's original container, such as a periodical, a book, or a website maybe. Remember, databases do not publish anything. They don't publish the material. They only store it. They warehouse it to be accessed by students. So in this example, the original container for the article was a periodical called Art History. We see that the title is actually hyperlinked there, and we know it's a periodical because it has a volume and also an issue number. And all this information is useful, we'll need it for a works cited entry, but clearly it's not in MLA format. It's actually, from an MLA format perspective, it's pretty hideous. Practically nothing there is in MLA format. So just copying and pasting that into a works cited entry would be an absolute disaster. So besides the title, the author, the source, usually you can find the URL or hopefully a digital object identifier listed on this page. Occasionally, the DOIs will not include the https://doi.org/, in which case, I hate to say it, you have to add it to the DOI and your works cited entry. So there I give you a correct example that you would want on a works cited page. This is different from URLs, and this can be confusing for students. This is different from URLs, which should not include the HTTPS on your works cited page. And this is because DOIs are stable and permanently linked to the article. So at any point in the future, someone would be able to copy that DOI and use it to access the article, whereas URLs are not stable, they're not permanent. They can break, and then within a matter of weeks, it might not work anymore. And you would not want to mislead and frustrate your reader with an obsolete web link. So again, you remove that https:// from URLs, but you include it in your DOIs. So here it's listed with no HTTPS. Sometimes it is listed. It's kind of random that way. So that's information you would need for your works cited entry, but there's other information on this page when you click on the title of the article that can be useful to you. I'm going to talk about two of those things, subject terms and abstracts. You can click on suggested subject terms. They're hyperlinked to get more search results. I don't think you necessarily have to do that, but I certainly would take note of those search terms, which can be combined with, or subject terms, which can be combined with other keywords to expand or refine your searches later, especially if you don't get the search results that you want. You can sort of build a cache of subject terms to expand your research later. The abstract, these are very useful as well. Not all articles will have an abstract, but if it does, it's a brief synopsis of the article, like a little summary. Reading abstracts first may keep you from wasting time on articles that are irrelevant to the objectives of your research project. Like the title of the article might sound fantastic. You might say, this is great. This is exactly what I'm looking for. And you open it, and like 30 minutes into reading the article, this is not what I wanted. There's nothing useful here. So having an abstract up front like this can be very useful, save lots of time. So I recommend reading them. Okay, we're going to talk about problems. The ways that Galileo search records can confuse and misdirect students when it comes to putting together bibliographies and works cited pages. I've categorized these problems just based on questions students have given me over the years. I call the first category caps and quotes. We got page number and then DOI do's. So we're going to start with caps and quotes, and we're actually going to look at one of the search records that we've been looking at for this entire video. Vespucci rediscovers America. You'll notice that the title is in all caps. When titles or parts of titles are listed in all capital letters, you should convert them to title case on your works cited page. There might be occasions when you would want to leave the all caps, but I tell beginning students it's always safe just to go ahead and convert everything to title case. You don't want titles in all caps in most works cited entries. So you see in this works cited entry I created for this article, I have converted the title of the article, which is in quotation marks there, to proper title case. Another question I get asked is what to do when there are quotations in the title of the article. You can see I chose this one because there are 3 of them. This article, Who's Eating Whom? The Discourse of Cannibalism in the Literature of the Black Atlantic. And there are actually 3 items here that appear in quotation marks. So to avoid confusion, quotation marks in titles of articles must be converted to single quote marks on your works cited page. The same kind of way that you handle dialogue or quotes within quotes, which I talked about in the quotations best practices video series. So here is a works cited entry for that source, and you can see that I converted all the quotation marks to singles so that I just have the double quotation marks opening and closing the title of the entire article. So that's how you deal with quotations in titles of articles. Now, page numbers. Sometimes Galileo records do weird things with page numbers, and I don't know why. A librarian, I'm sure, could explain it. But here is an entry for a theater review for Long Day's Journey into Night, written by J. Chris Westgate. And I've given you a screenshot that shows you some of the additional information down below, the title, the authors, but I want you to look at the source. There's no PDF for this article, so you're only going to be able to read it in HTML. But there are page numbers listed with the source, and you should still include those page numbers in your works cited entry, even if you're reading it in HTML format. But the problem here is look at what is listed there for page numbers. That is very confusing for students. So I'm going to put up a few examples of ways that students have tried to solve this problem. And you can look at these, pause the screen. I'm going to put 3 of them up here. And you can tell me which one you would have done, if any of them. So the first one, P278, page 278, that one is wrong. And the next one is page 278, 4-page. That's basically what's in the search record. You could see it at the top there. That is also wrong. And then I've had students sometimes put the plus sign in there, 278 plus. That's usually used for newspapers and magazines where the page numbering for an article is not continuous but broken up over an entire issue. So the article might start on page 278, but then it skips to page 300 and there's a bunch of other articles in between. That's when you would use the plus sign, but that's not appropriate here either. So what is a correct citation for this article? I will show you. So what Galileo's telling me with those numbers up there is that the article starts on page 278 and that it's 4 pages long. So that means the article starts on 278 and it ends on page 281. And that is what I would put on a correct works cited entry. There you see it, pages 278 to 81. I did leave off the database information because I wanted you to see the page numbers. So finally, let's talk about DOIs. DOIs are hard to find sometimes. This is an article, Traveling Anthropophagy, the depiction of cannibalism in modern travel writing. I'm going to scroll down here, and you'll see that there's an access URL, but no PDF, no DOI. And then you can scroll down, and then you see the article in HTML. I'll just scroll through it. You can see it. Pretty long article, actually. And going back up to the top here, we're going to click on Access Options. So the question I have at this point is there a PDF available, and will there be a DOI for it? Because there was no DOI listed in the Galileo search record for this article. So when I open those access options, and you can see there's PDF or online full text, which is HTML. Of course, I want to click on the PDF, and the PDF opens, and lo and behold, there is actually a DOI on the PDF. And that is what I would want on my works cited page. Since I'm using a PDF, the PDF provides the DOI, even though it's not listed on the Galileo search record. I want that DOI in my works cited entry. If this document did not have a DOI, if it was just the PDF and no DOI was listed, then I would want to use the URL for the PDF. So I would go up to the top of my browser window, and I would simply copy that URL right out of the search bar, whatever that is, that little window with the URL in it there. I can't think of it off the top of my head. And that's what I would paste into my works cited entry, but only in the absence of a digital object identifier. And with that, I'm going to wrap up this video on navigating the library and using database tools. Happy hunting.